Hey, everybody, and we are live with Dan Piontkowski, a Senior Director of Sourcing and Recruiting for PeopleScout. Right, Dan?
That's right. Good morning, Michael. I hope everybody's doing well today. I've been looking forward to this.
As have I. Many of you might not know, but I met Dan while I was still going through my transition at a job fair. And we really clicked because we have fairly similar personalities when it comes to the transition and some of the things that we deal with. So I'm excited and a little timid about, or tentative maybe, about this session today.
Yeah, there's no telling what's going to come out of this. Hopefully it's all good. And I still remember, for everybody watching, I was the guy, the recruiter standing at the booth at the career fair, and that Michael Quinn guy pinged me on LinkedIn prior to the job fair. We ran into each other at the job fair. We laughed, we giggled, we hated each other. We smiled, we laughed.
I didn't hate you.
All over again. It's been a couple years now. Like, it has been an absolute delight to see Michael Quinn then and Michael Quinn now, and the impact that he's had on the space. Like, I rarely have the time to do stuff like this, and it's incredibly important. So when you put this together, I slapped my hand on the desk and said, I've got to participate and help out with this.
I love it. And you know, for other people out there that don't know, whenever I have questions about recruiting that maybe like I know, but I'm not 100% sure I know, and I want to check, I usually will ping Dan and ask him, and he'll give me the God's honest truth. So I threw this banner up here in the bottom here for you guys to check out. I will throw up some comments over the course of the session, but you know, you hear a lot of people talking about the black hole. Like, I keep sending in applications, resumes, and I never hear anything back. And so I'd love your feedback on what you think about an ATS, and are they a black hole? So not yours, Dan, everybody else out there. So let's talk to you first. What is PeopleScout?
Great question. I asked the same question a couple years ago. Recruiting organizations, right? Sometimes companies don't want to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. PeopleScout is one of those RPOs that you hear about, recruiting process outsourcing. So a company, in this case, such as Marriott, hires PeopleScout. And we do the sourcing and recruiting for them. There is a large number of companies out there that will utilize an organization like us, or even some of our competitors sometimes, to do recruiting for them. It doesn't mean that we are, an arm's distance away and trying to sell you as a candidate to the organization and wiggle around their own processes. It's very much a collaboration and a partnership to make workflow run smoother and more efficient. So yeah, it's my current role with PeopleScout. I'm the director of client delivery. My client right now is Marriott International, and I lead the team that handles all of the sourcing and recruiting for non-management roles across all of Marriott's properties in North America. Wow.
So when you talk about an RPO, then I guess it really is just the company wants to do the hiring, but they don't want to have the employees, their own employees, do the hiring. So they outsource it to somebody that really works hand in hand as a member of their team, basically, to bring talent into Marriott.
Exactly.
Well, not any company, but like in this case.
Yeah, Marriott. Exactly right. Everybody has expertises in life, and our expertise is in recruiting.
Yep.
So if you were to apply to Marriott, working with the recruiter, you would probably never know the difference unless you watch this as to who is behind, or who they actually work for, right? we look and sound and talk just like Marriott employees. If you were to email us, it would go to our Marriott email address. Very collaborative, very partner driven, to work together to get the best people on board here.
And I just got an image of the Wizard of Oz. and you behind the curtain with all the,
Pulling levers and ringing bells. That's what I do all day.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about this. So it's not just military and veteran, it's this massive recruiting organization for, a huge corporation, right?
Yeah. Years ago, 15 years ago, when I started out in recruiting, when I got out, it was a heavy, heavy focus on the transitioning and veteran space.
Mm-hmm.
Through that, I've been able to, I learned more than just what MOSs and ranks translate to which jobs and which skills, and focused way more on the process behind the curtain that you referenced, right? How does recruiting actually work? What does the process flow look like? And being able to dig deep like that, to help me figure out how to navigate those candidates through the process to get hired, which ended up, really successful. We saw a lot of transitioning folks hired at the places I've worked at because I figured out how to make the process work. And now being able to pull all of that together and sit have the privilege to sit in a seat where I can run the organization. It's all about process, right? It's tools, technology, and people, and being able to bring that all together so the process works for everybody.
So can you explain the process?
Yeah.
In process,
I don't know if we've got 6 days here.
In general terms, like literally, from they realize they have a vacancy or they need to hire someone.
Yeah. So and this will kind of dabble in the career path of a recruiter, right? The day-to-day life of a hands-on recruiter. You're assigned hiring managers or you're assigned locations. Somewhere you're aligned to a set group that you support. And as they have needs, they will let you know and open up job requisitions so that you can start to find what they're looking for. And that's one of the keys to being a good recruiter is you're finding what they're looking for. Sometimes that makes it challenging. If we think about the transitioning space, it's a little bit tougher to pitch somebody that's not what they're looking for, rather than finding exactly what they are looking for. Or when you don't hear back from a recruiter right away after you've messaged them on LinkedIn saying, I need help figuring out what I want to do with my career, or I don't know what job I want. From a recruiter standpoint, we know I'm looking for X, Y, and Z skills. And somebody that can go to this location at this salary and do this job this many days a week. If you're not sure of that, you kind of fall to the lower end of the priority list from the.
So I think you hit a good point there, real quick. You're looking to find what the hiring manager is looking for. So if the hiring manager says they want X, Y, Z, and the service member veteran should have that experience based on their career, they would realistically, even if the recruiter is a veteran and knows that, they would still have to sell that to the hiring manager and convince the hiring manager to take that risk, as opposed to somebody that just has XYZ on their resume. So it's really important for us to make it as easy as possible.
Absolutely.
To focus on that role, that we have this exact specific experience.
Absolutely. Spelling it out, being very clear on what you can do and what you want to do. That just makes the process run that much smoother. From that recruiter seat, I find the candidates, I'm talking to them. I'm trying to figure out, one, are they capable of doing the job? Two, will they say yes to the job? And then working with the hiring manager to set up their interviews so that final decisions can get made. After those happen, then I'm the one that delivers either the good or the bad news as a recruiter back to the candidate.
Now, does everybody get the bad news when they're not the good news? For the most part, I'm not holding you accountable.
Yeah, for the most part, it's not that we want to deliver the bad news. It's that we have to, right? Yeah. There has to be some closure. Sometimes it's in an email. Sometimes it's a phone call. Part of it, looking back at my career, sometimes it depends how far you got in the process. there's different levels of engagement every step of the way. And then there's also follow-up, right? Just because you didn't get that role, everything may have gone wonderfully, but that role just didn't work out. Something changed. As a recruiter, if you made it that far in the process, I want to stay friendly with you, because next week a different job might open up. Next month a different job might open up that you might be even better for. And that's always a challenge as a job seeker, right? Just because you didn't get one job doesn't mean you can't get the next one in that same organization. We think about these big, huge, giant corporations and companies that hire thousands of people a year. Every week things are changing, because that job you're looking for isn't there today. Doesn't mean they don't want you forever. It just might. Timing is everything in the recruiting process. Yeah.
So you want to be memorable to the recruiter, and you want to stay positive with the recruiter, because other opportunities come up and they think of your name.
Yeah, it's absolutely right.
So here's one of my favorite topics. So you've got thousands and thousands of people applying for these roles. There's no way that the recruiter is sending out an email, a personal email, to all these people saying, sorry, you weren't selected, right? So
correct.
You know where I see the smile starting to form.
Hey, this is why an ATS is so valuable.
Okay, great. So can you explain, like, I know we've had these conversations. I'm so excited that you got where I was going with this. I was looking for the ATS. I mean, so this really, the way it works, correct me if I'm wrong, the way it works is there's some AI that just says whether you're good or bad, and if you don't match, it just throws it into a black hole, and you can never see it, right?
I don't looking down, right into my grave on that. Right? The ATS is a tool. I mean, we'll get simple and we'll say it's a giant Excel spreadsheet with a really different looking screen on it. Right? That ATS will do exactly what I tell it to do.
Yep.
Me as the user, that determines the power of the ATS when we think about individual recruiting actions. It's the recruiter telling the ATS what to do. Now, yes, there are some built-in work processes that happen naturally. Templated emails that might go out. Those are queued in, right? That it's not always a manual email that comes to you. It could be a generated email. And that's to keep you engaged and keep you informed of where things are in the process, right? But I've never seen it. In 15 years working with a number of different ATSs, I haven't yet seen anything that can remove somebody and just shut them down from their application completely.
Right.
Now, questions along the way, and screening questions and decision points that you have to answer, and questions and skills that need to be validated. Even then, if you don't have the skill, it doesn't remove you out of the ATS. It just may let you know that without having X, you are not a good fit for this job. So, try some other jobs.
Right.
You're still visible. You're still searchable. You're still findable.
So that's what I want. I like to say that, correct me if I'm wrong, and legitimately correct me if I'm wrong. I was just poking you, that previous one. Is that all the ATS is a customer relationship management module. It's a system that allows you to develop your workflows, and it makes it possible for a recruiter to go through thousands of applicants at a time and get to the best candidates in a meaningful way, and be able to get through their day. Otherwise, you'd never be able to manage 20, 25 recs at a time.
Yeah, it's it's no different than if we were to turn on our laptop right now and go shopping for a refrigerator.
Yep.
Right. Where do I start? Well, I just go to the search field and type in refrigerator and start from there. Start to narrow things down a little bit.
Oh, that's a great one. The results are all still in there. You might have to click through the different pages, but you're going to get every result.
Yep.
But the top results are usually the ones we look at.
Yep. Depending how skilled I am in my search ability, right? I may end up accidentally buying a $20,000 refrigerator miles away because I didn't pay attention. If I refine my search more, I can run down the street and buy one for a lot at a much more reasonable price.
Yep, I love it. That's a great searching for refrigerators. That's a great new way to explain ATS. So I got a great question from Eddie Cervantes. How much are soft skills weighed compared to hard skills for transitioning service members who may not have certifications or specific industry experience?
Oh, that's a great one. So much of that answer I can put on my old consulting hat and answer this. It depends, right? It absolutely depends. It depends on the company. It depends on the industry, right? If I am, even from my own personal standpoint, right? We just finished up the calendar year. That means tax forms are coming out. We got to get ready to do our taxes. If I'm looking for a CPA to do my taxes, I'm looking for a CPA. I'm not going to hand my taxes to, a transitioning veteran that says, hey, I want to learn how to do taxes and I'm really personable and communicate well. There is a hard skill and certification that I have to see to feel comfortable giving you this work to do.
But I worked in the tax center on base. That was my additional duty.
Right. It's
that's a great analogy again.
That is reality, right? I'm a veteran. I want to give any work I have to other veterans, but I also need to have sometimes I have to see a certification.
Yeah.
Right. I have to know that proof that you are well skilled in that job.
Yeah.
And I think those communication rules a day, right? Recruiting is a great example. For everyone that's interested in getting into recruiting, there really isn't a barrier of entry when it comes to certifications, right? You don't go to school. There is no college major. There is no standard of excellence in the world of recruiting that says I have a degree in recruiting. It's communications. It's soft skills. It's multitasking. It's a natural curiosity to continue learning and poking at things. And then a blend of some technology ability. I'm a big fan of transitioning into the recruiting space. One, because I did it, but two, I think it's what you need your strength. It uses your strengths, right? Communication, multitasking. That is where strength comes in. And that's what makes a good recruiter, is that ability to follow up and get things done. So yeah, I'm a big fan of jumping in as a recruiter if you're transitioning. And, if nothing else, do a year or two as a recruiter somewhere, because you are exposed to so many areas of the business and develop such close relationships with the hiring managers and decision makers that now you get exposure to all the things that you didn't know existed, all the jobs out there that you had no idea about. Now you know them. You know the buzzwords, you know the lingo, you can speak the language just through your organic conversations with hiring managers about what they're looking for. And if it interests you, off you go to learn more about it. And the next time that job opens up in your company, you're putting your own resume in there.
Yeah. So I would add, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would add, a common phrase I've heard is something along the lines of hard skills get you the interview because you've got, you're looking for XYZ. If XYZ is not on the resume, hard skills get you to the interview. Soft skills help you stand out at the interview.
Yeah.
Would that be fair? A fair way to explain this?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when I hire recruiters in my own team, I have to catch myself sometimes too. One of my natural tendencies is to say, got an opening, do they have an Army background or a Navy background? That's what I want to do, right?
Yeah,
but
Army, they won. They're a winner, right?
Another conversation. It's a tough balance, right? As the leader, trying to figure out who to introduce into my organization, I've got to find that balance, and hard skills versus soft skills, and figuring out what I need at the time. You can learn a lot through. I always try to have the conversations at a minimum, just to, if nothing else, to gauge their willingness to learn, or where they're, see if you can find out, is that passion there to really get into recruiting without experience? And if it is, we're going to keep talking and we're going to figure this out. I'm always looking for go-getters, right? The people that some days you're going to grind.
Yeah.
Right. It's I equate it to crab fishing, right? Anybody that watched Deadliest Catch on the Discovery Channel, they're out there, hours and hours repeating the same process over and over and over again. And they wake back up the next day and do it all over again. There are times it's like that in recruiting, big, huge hiring pushes, tough roles. You are going to grind, and it is not always going to be fun. But you're going to find a way to make it fun and stay engaged and stay motivated and keep on grinding until you get there. And that's really what I'm looking for a lot of times when I'm talking to candidates.
That's a great point. So I know we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent, and I could talk to you for hours on this stuff. But the idea is a day at work for a senior director of sourcing and recruiting. So, and you call it high volume is what you traditionally do, right? Recruiting.
Yeah.
So,
high volume, tens of thousands.
Yeah. So what is your day like?
One of the things I love about the role, every day is a little bit different. One of the first things I have to do every morning when I start the day is just find out what happened between 6 o'clock last night and 8 o'clock this morning. Right. We're talking about high volume, multiple time zones, a lot of stuff going on. If somebody took a website down for maintenance and things didn't go back up right, that affects the ability for candidates across the globe to apply to jobs. Right. I've got to keep an eye on things like that, or just even patches and upgrades, not only to our sites, but to some of the job boards that are out there, making sure things continue to exist. Then I'm spending a lot of time working through human behavior challenges, right? Are there escalations or issues that are growing where, a hiring manager may not be getting the support they want? Or are we having challenges getting support from the hiring managers on certain topics? Then a lot of the day is around forecasting, right? Something as big as this, things that are happening today. This is a giant machine, right? It takes, just like the Army and Navy, right? Big giant machines. You can't turn a ship very fast. It takes time. So forecasting 3, 6, 12 months out, what's going to be happening and what do we need to start doing now to be able to handle the challenges 12 months from now? And that's from a volume or from a technology standpoint, right?
Yeah.
I'll plug Indeed.com, right? One of the biggest job boards out there. Everybody, if you're looking for a job, you need to be on Indeed. I'll say it for everybody watching.
Killing me.
Along with LinkedIn.
Thank you. All right, good. And I don't work for LinkedIn, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah, they complement each other nicely with what you can do on them.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to places like Indeed about, on a daily basis about how to make sure that we get visibility with job seekers, right?
Ooh.
It's a challenging employment market right now.
Yeah. Does that mean when you talk to Indeed, does that mean like you're talking ad spend and stuff like that, promoting jobs and stuff like that?
Yeah, promoting,
negotiating,
how to be more visible.
Yeah,
right. Amongst employers, there's a tighter labor market right now than I think a lot of people realize, especially when you get granular city by city. It's tough to find great people. So it's very competitive. I want to make sure that we are positioned best
Yeah.
to be the first job that people see when they go out and look for a career change. I want to be their first stop. So yeah, talking to the vendors, talking to the Indeeds or LinkedIn's about how we make sure we maintain that. So that's a big part of it. And then just looking at new tools or new techniques or new processes that we need to bring into the team to handle the ever-changing technology that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 10 years ago, video, doing something like this, video to video, right? It wasn't even thought of. And now it's commonplace. So how do we roll this in and make it part of our process? That it's difficult to just flip a switch and make things happen. So a lot of communications across different teams and different parts of the organization, so that just because making a change makes our life easier, we want to make sure it doesn't make their life much more difficult.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Looking at the process, you want candidate experience. I think we were chatting about that earlier. You want everybody that applies to feel good about their experience applying, so that they stay engaged in the future, and they also think well of the brand. So I think a lot of companies don't realize if somebody applies to your company, they have a horrible candidate experience, they're probably not going to be a customer at some point in the future. So
they're not going to come back. They're not going to come back to apply. They may not be a customer. Looking back on my own career, right? I've had a couple of different jobs along the way, working for a couple of different places. For every place I have worked, there were probably 4 or 5 places that I applied to that didn't get the job.
Right.
Those that I had a poor experience with, I'm not going back there and ever trying again.
Mm-hmm.
It's, call it a petty grudge, call it, whatever it is. But there are some places, right? And everybody has that short list that they keep in their back pocket, right? I'm never going to go work for them. I'm never going to go work. That's why candidate experience, politeness, follow through is so vitally important.
So I got a question here, but before we get into how quota driven is your work, because I know the answer, but we're going to get into it real quick. How big is your team?
We'll say
typically in a typical year.
Yeah, I'll say over 50.
Okay, so over 50 recruiters.
Yeah, there's a lot of different pieces in a recruiting organization.
Yep.
Not everybody is a facing recruiter, right? There are people that focus exclusively on recruiting technology. There are people that focus on a number of different things that a recruiting organization runs just like any other part of the business. It requires support. So there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of different career tracks just within the world of recruiting. Everybody always thinks of recruiter, just pure recruiting. I pick up the phone every day, call candidates, take notes on the conversation, and then rinse and repeat 15 times a day, 5 days a week. There's a lot more than that, where some roles you may not talk to candidates voice to voice at all, but you're still a vital and integral part of the recruiting process.
No, that's a great point. So, talking about that, some organizations have sourcers, some smaller organizations just have a recruiter, some have schedulers, right? People to schedule, because scheduling interviews between the candidates and the hiring manager, man, that can be a pain.
It's effort. Yeah, and you've probably experienced that, right?
Yeah.
If you think to your time at even EY, if you had to do an interview, somebody dancing around in your calendar, and you've got client-facing work to do, you don't have time to do that interview. You need a very fluid and flexible schedule, because you never know when the client's going to call and say, Michael, I need this now. Yeah. And, it's not especially when it's not specifically for my team, like because a lot of organizations have more than one interviewer. If it's not if it's for my team, I'm super let's get the people on board. But sometimes I got to be honest, it's hard to
block that time. You're like, oh, got so much to do that day, you know? And so I give them like the block of time, and those recruiters got to go back and forth. So that's a great point. So Mark had a question. How quota driven is your work at PeopleScout?
When you get into, there's a big difference in a couple of different career tracks in the sectors in the recruiting industry, right? This isn't like an executive search or individual placements where they're, commission based. If you want food on your table and money in your paycheck that month, you've got to make three hires or three placements. The RPO space, it's much bigger, much more long-term, where an RPO would be brought in for a year plus. It's not driven by an individual daily quota, like we would think of an executive search recruiter.
But if you're, I mean, your employer in an RPO has a requirement to meet thousands or fill thousands of roles. Like obviously you have to fill them, otherwise.
Yeah, it's it's like every other company out there in the recruiting process, right? Some, and as we've learned over the last year, it's forecasts can go wrong.
Yeah,
right.
I just snorted, so that's what that weird sound was. It was a horrible laugh, but I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's quota driven at all. It's more running. Think of it just like running a business, right? There's need and demand, and how do you meet that need and demand in a very efficient manner?
All right, we're a little over our time, so I want to start to wind it down. I got one other question I thought would be cool for you to answer. So what KPIs other than days time to fill do you find to be the best to evaluate recruiters?
Oh, that's an awesome question. This gets into my day-to-day role here.
Yeah.
Right? How do I manage the team, develop people, and keep them motivated and figure out who needs more help in different areas, right? Yeah, days to fill, that's that's tough to base an individual recruiter's performance on. There's a lot more where you can talk to the hiring managers, get feedback from the hiring managers on just the day-to-day behavior and the level of support that they give. From then the internal standpoint, right? Are they using the tools that are available to them? There's a big difference between finding a candidate right away in the first 2 days and getting that quick win. Then we think about, we can't find the candidate. 30, 40, 50 days pass and the candidate still isn't found. Well, is that the recruiter not being able to find the candidate? Does the candidate not exist, right? Is it a combination of skills that is so delicate or unique that the person literally doesn't exist? Have they exhausted all avenues and used all the tools available to say that this is everything that I've done and I still can't find the rainbow striped unicorn with a squirrel that rides on its left ear? Right? It's they just give up and say nope. Like I do when I have to look in the refrigerator, like, hey, there's no ketchup, and my wife yells at me. She says, "Just move the milk. It's right behind the milk."
What about close rate? Is that another one? Like like you get someone into the pipeline, you get them doing all the interviews, everything, and you go to everybody, and they agree they want them, and then the person's like, "No, I don't want the job." Is that something you could?
That's an important piece of the recruiting world.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to lay the blame at the feet of any one person or one action specifically along the way, right? If why we decline a job, very rarely is it for any one person's fault.
Right.
It's a combination of things, and I think it's probably a little tough to lay that fault at the feet of the recruiter. Because you've got to really explore and find out why they said no.
Right. Interesting. Well, I know we're going over. We probably could do another one of these down the road, but I would be remiss to not give you a minute or so to give some last bits of advice to transitioning service members, recent veterans, military spouses that are in the job search? Like, what would your top advice be to anyone looking for a job? Not through PeopleScout, just in general.
Yeah, it's best advice I can give. I've learned it the hard way. I've heard other people talk about it, right? Figure out what you want, figure out what you want to do, and then figure out how that company works their recruiting process and adjust yourself to do it, right? You're not going to get very far if you have a stubborn attitude and say, well, I've got a really strong LinkedIn profile. If I'm not going to write a resume for you, I'm not going to email you my resume because you can go look at my LinkedIn profile instead.
Mm-hmm.
Make it easy on them and yourself. If they ask you to do something, do it. It's probably for a reason, because every company has their own unique recruiting process. There is not one standard rule that applies across the globe, right? Everybody does it different, with different steps, with different numbers of interviews, with different questions that are asked in the interview.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make a company right or wrong. It just, that's the way they do it, and they're comfortable and confident in it.
Yep.
So adhering to their process, taking the steps that they ask you to, completing the forms they ask you to. There's probably a reason that they do it, because they need to collect pieces of information about you, yourself, your background, your skills. So that, just think about when it gets to the hiring manager, just like all of us, when we've got our preferences on how things function, right? I want to look at this area of the screen and see this piece of information. I'm going to look at this area of the screen and see this piece of information. It's just habit and trained.
Yeah.
If it's not there, I assume it doesn't exist.
I love it. So let me see so figure out what you want to do, and then articulate clearly how you are really good at doing that, especially when it aligns to the job. And then I would add, if you're not sure how to do that, and you don't know exactly how to articulate what they're looking for, you don't know exactly what they're looking for, find mentors that do that and ask them.
Yeah, boy, it sounds so familiar when you say that.
And I would add, my last little tip I give people is, if you are getting into the interview process with a company, look up veterans at that company on LinkedIn, reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going into the interview process. Do you got a few minutes? Can you spare a few minutes to kind of give me some tips? And more often than not, I will tell you, they will say yes. And sometimes you could get those magic questions that you have time to research in advance, or some advice, and really find a mentor, because they know you've already gotten in the process.
Yep. I've been watching some of the comments roll in here, and all really good comments. I wish we had time to go through and address all these questions. Who knows, maybe in the future we do it again. I wanted to point out the last thing for you, because I read your stuff every day, like everybody should. Collared shirt today for you.
Yep, I know. I was a little worried. I was a little worried. Now I got to end with a good story. I'm sorry, this is not a one-up, but back in the day, pre-COVID, companies were headhunting Dan. And I remember we had a conversation. He told me companies were headhunting him, trying to steal him away from PeopleScout. And they offered him more money, and he had to think. I remember you saying, is that much more money? Is like $1,000, $1,500 more a month enough to make me have to put on pants and drive into the office? So, and I'm like really shrinking that entire conversation. But I would say that I love it. Yeah, look, this is the best part of these interviews that make me get dressed every day. But salary isn't everything, right?
Yeah, there's balance to everything.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not going to find that balance that you need and want until you experience it. It's really hard to predict. Hey, 10 years ago, when we met, I was a suit and tie guy.
Yeah.
Right. You would never catch me not wearing a tie, not wearing a suit. It didn't happen. There was a tie on 24 hours a day on my neck. And then, things change. We grow, we evolve, just like our career. It's ever changing, and you've got to be flexible. That's what develops a great career, is your own flexibility and ability to adapt.
Yeah. But sometimes things change isn't always for the better. So I caught myself wearing T-shirts for about 6 months there to meetings. And I'm like, nah, I can't be an executive in a Big Four, or I can't be, a CEO now that's going and talking to Fortune 500 companies in a T-shirt. Like, for me, that's not going to cut it. So that's why I always wear a shirt and a jacket now when I do these. And I've seen a difference in the way people have interacted with me. So, Dan, I know we're over the 40-minute. I tried so hard. And
hey, we're close. We're there. We nailed it.
Hey, for everybody here, look, I encourage you to reach out to Dan directly, connect with him on LinkedIn, send him questions if you want. He may or may not answer them, depending on their level of,
I'm not trade secrets or anything. But I'm always happy to chat with folks. If you message me on LinkedIn or connect with me, you're always going to get a response. And happy to do it. Right, we're all here to pay it forward, one way or the other. If there's a little bit of help I can give somebody, I'm always happy to do it. Right, a little bit of goodwill, that's what makes the world keep on spinning.
Yep. Thank you for everything, Dan. And we will do another one of these focused more on, if you're up for it, on the transition topics, if that's okay.
Happy to do so. All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Michael.
Thanks for everything, Dan. Have a great day.